I've got not one, but... Oh, sorry about that. I've got not one, but two new studies, totally unrelated, saying we should probably brush and floss more. And it's not to keep our dentist happy, but instead, our heart. Yep. One of the best things you may be able to do to mitigate your risk of the #1 killer as we age, cardiovascular disease, if you are wondering, is take care of your teeth. And here's why. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Today, I'm going to explain why flossing, no, not the dance, was found to be associated with a 22% lower risk of ischemic stroke, 44% lower risk of cardioembolic stroke, aka blood clots traveling from the heart, and a 12% lower risk of atrial fibrillation, aka AFib. 3 hallmarks of the #1 killing condition for adults on this beautiful floating rock. Again, if you forgot, cardiovascular disease. And these stats obviously aren't some finger-in-the-wind guess either. They were the findings of a new large-scale longitudinal study of over 6,000 individuals in the US, whose health outcomes were followed for 25 years. And although this flossing phenomena was only an association, the data fits ever so nicely into an emergent theme, one which we have already covered a few times on this channel. And that is how our oral health can make a big longevity impact. So, we're going to re-explore why this may be the case, because that's what we do when we get 2 new independent studies on the topic dropping in the same week. And of course, at the end, we will rehash the best ways to mitigate and reduce your risk. And no, the answer isn't just floss more. It actually goes much deeper. As deep as, well, we may be able to go in our body. The gut. Which is a perfect segue into the second new study on today's docket. And this one takes us to Japan, where the largest stroke center in the country looked at the microbiome compositions of both the mouth and gut across 200 participants within 7 days of having a stroke, comparing them to a 50-participant control group to see if there were any noticeable patterns. And yes, your mouth has a microbiome, along with your gut and your skin, which means you have microbes using you as a full-body living quarters. But as you know from all of our reviews on the Microbiome 101 playlist, that's actually a good thing. Anyway, back to the study. Upon this microbe analysis, the researchers did in fact notice a few interesting things. First, that one species of bacteria, Streptococcus aeruginosus, was significantly more abundant in the saliva and gut of people who were just coming off a stroke when compared to the controls. Interesting. And upon a deeper look, they found that having this species of bacteria present was independently associated with a 20% higher odds of stroke after controlling for vascular risk factors. While, in contrast, the presence of bacteria associated with beneficial effects, specifically Anrostripes hydreuus and Bacteroides publius, was associated with a drop in risk by 18% and 14%. Microbes doing microbes things. You don't say. And if you thought that was cool, get this. Over a 2-year follow-up period, stroke survivors with Streptococcus aeruginosus in their gut had a significantly higher risk of death and cardiovascular events, while no increase in risk was found in stroke survivors with a healthy population of some of the aforementioned microbes, Anrostripes hydreuus and Bacteroides publius. Rather interesting stuff, I know. And when you add in the fact that Streptococcus aeruginosus is also a bacteria that's been observed to drive tooth decay by producing acids that break down tooth enamel, these findings turn from rather interesting to rather suspicious, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. Now, there are of course limitations in both of these studies that warrant further research. And I do want to stress that these are only associations and not causal links. However, this only adds to a growing body of research linking the health of one's pearly whites with their odds, likelihood, and probability of disease. Which begs the question, why exactly is this the case? I mean, what is actually going on which makes this association a mechanistic reality? Here's what we know. As I briefly mentioned before, the oral cavity is loaded with trillions of bacteria every moment of every day. This is officially known as our oral microbiome. And despite what your dentist might tell you, bacteria in our mouth isn't all bad. In fact, it has a biological significant role in our overall health, as a well-balanced oral biome helps protect against pathogens, tune the immune system, produce nutrients and aid absorption, help maintain oral pH, produce tooth-protecting biofilms, regulate saliva composition, aid wound healing, and set the stage for respiratory and gut microbiome health. Yeah, pretty critical stuff. However, if you were listening, you would have heard me preface that with the term well-balanced. Because when the communities of microbes in the mouth sway towards dysbiosis, or an unbalanced population leaning towards dysfunction, things around the body start to get a little shady. For example, when we eat an ultra-processed, high-sugar diet and conveniently combine it with less than optimal dental hygiene, this food becomes the baseline for the microbe communities which prosper in the mouth. Remember, what you eat, they eat. So this type of food cultivates an oral environment of microbes which promote the formation of plaque, which is a sticky film of food particles, saliva, and bacteria which accumulates on teeth. And if this sticky film of plaque is left unattended, it can build up, begin to decay the tooth, irritate the gums, and drive them to become inflamed and infected, eventually causing the gums to recede and pockets between the tooth and the gums to open up, basically opening up the once tightly sealed door to the bloodstream, a door which quickly becomes infiltrated by bacteria and their byproducts. And here's the thing, whether this bacteria is technically good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's all labeled as the same non-self must be destroyed intruder by the body, with the one and only response being longevity liability numero uno, chronic inflammation. And this is where the cardiovascular disease connection is made, as several studies suggest that the increase of bacteria and their fragments from the oral cavity entering the bloodstream through the gaps around the gums induces an inflammatory response which sets the stage for an increase in risk of heart damage and arterial plaquing, a phenomena which has been increasingly observed, such as in the studies we saw today. And when you combine this chronic source of mouth-derived inflammation with the fact that those ultra-processed eating habits also increase the odds of cardiovascular disease independently, mainly by driving an increase in insulin resistance, blood sugar, and free-flowing atherogenic lipoproteins carrying cholesterol, it becomes a perfect metabolic storm priming the onset of disease. This is exactly why the ultra-processed, ultra-sedentary, ultra-stressed, ultra-sleep-deprived lifestyle is such a longevity liability. There has also been research displaying that this dysfunction in the mouth increases both blood pressure and inflammation associated with autoimmune diseases, two chronic conditions that plague a growing amount of intelligent walking apes on this beautiful floating rock. So, if you have your health and vitality in mind, keeping your oral cavity happy and healthy is probably a good idea. So, let's talk about some ways we can do just that. And we might as well start with the undercover elephant in the room: what you eat and drink. And at this point, I hope you get the gist on why. Because eating and drinking real, natural derived stuff is one of the best interventions you have at your disposal to cultivate your oral microbes for good, creating an environment which balances pH, synthesizes key nutrients, builds biofilms, tunes the immune system, and doesn't scare away any potential mates with face-melting morning breath. Big one, I know. thus keeping a strong gut-gum barrier. And on the flip side, in case you needed a reminder, that ultra-processed sugary stuff cultivates an environment of the opposite, one for suboptimal communities of bacteria to prosper. Bacteria that produce acids that have a higher likelihood of damaging the teeth and supporting gums, setting the stage for a weakened gum-blood barrier and the infiltration of inflammation-driving bacterial byproducts. So go on and add that to your list of reasons to eat healthy. There's also been some super interesting research which we reviewed here, highlighting how an intermittent fasting protocol has some efficacy in reducing the risk of periodontal disease, or the official medical term for that inflammation of the gums that I described before, which kind of makes sense, as a strategic meal timing protocol has shown over and over again to modulate inflammation and metabolic function in a health-promoting way, as well as have a number of benefits on the communities of microbes in our gut. So that's another potential tool in the toolbox. And please don't forget, this whole body thing is connected. So healthy eating and strategic meal timing not only affect what's going on in the mouth, but what's going on everywhere, working on hundreds of different mechanisms which independently reduce the risk of disease. So strive to create a perfect storm of metabolic prosperity rather than do the oh so common opposite. Next, the tactical stuff. Brushing, flossing, and a fan favorite, gargling. All right, fine. I'm not aware of any official benefits of gargling, nor did I look it up, but it's fun to do, so we threw it in there. Ideally, you want to floss and swish around some water following each meal. This will help remove any residue or buildup which may have occurred, which makes it even more important after a sugary meal, for all the reasons we went through before. Now, when it comes to brushing, ideally you want to aim for several times a day. I personally like 2 to 3. However, the most important time is probably after your last meal of the day, so make sure you schedule one then. This will help reduce plaque buildup, which is at the foundation of most oral health conditions. I like to use an organic toothpaste powder which combines bentonine and kaolin clay. This is due to its high concentration of minerals like calcium, magnesium, and silica, which can potentially help strengthen tooth enamel if absorbed by the teeth, which is a currently debated if, but I like to hedge my bets. And if you use any type of retainer or mouth guard, it is super important to keep those clean as well, because this can be a hiding spot and breeding ground for bacteria. So keep that in mind. There are several ultrasonic cleaning machines that are very affordable, which can help you out here. Lastly, but definitely not least, keeping your dentist top of mind every 6 months or so is also key. So stay on top of your biannual visits and get that professional cleaning and advice, especially if it's already included in your insurance or health package. Use it. And I hear they give out free floss. So, I mean, come on. As with optimizing all other aspects of your health, creating a solid, healthy, repeatable routine is the secret sauce. The good news being the fact that healthy habits build on each other like interest in the longevity bank. So investing in what and when you eat, the sleep you get, the movement you do, the floss you use, the products you brush with, and repeating daily are not only the best oral health promoting tools you have, but also the straight up longevity tools you have. The name of the game, as we know, is prevention. And if you're not deploying it in your mouth, you are leaving figurative and literal holes in your longevity strategy. So make your dentist happy and get flossing.